Welcome to Holme Horror. I've been waiting for you. The tape? The snow fell steadily over the small, desolate town of Ashen Hollow, blanketing the streets in a thick, muffling silence. The town, nestled between misty mountains and shadowy woods, seemed perpetually trapped in a state of twilight. Its isolation wasn't merely geographical. It was as if something darker hung over it, a suffocating presence that seeped into the lives of its residents. At the heart of the town's macabre folklore was the tape. It wasn't just an urban legend. It was whispered about in hushed tones, passed from one uneasy conversation to another. Some claimed it appeared mysteriously in the local video rental store decades ago, its plain black casing nestled among rows of family-friendly films. Others swore it arrived in unmarked packages on their doorsteps, with no note or explanation. But the one detail that united every retelling was its chilling reputation. Those who watched it disappeared within 7 days. Sarah Dawes, an ambitious journalist fresh out of college, had a nose for the bizarre. She thrived on uncovering stories that others wouldn't dare touch, and the whispers about the tape were too tantalizing to ignore. Her curiosity was piqued one snowy afternoon as she sat in the town's only coffee shop, overhearing two locals talk in hushed, fearful voices. "They say he watched it," one of the women murmured, her eyes darting nervously. "Who?" the other asked, leaning closer. "Ethan Carter. You know, the guy who vanished last winter. His sister found the tape in his room after he disappeared." Sarah's pen stilled against her notebook. Her heart raced as she listened to the rest of the conversation. "That's not the first time," the woman continued. "Remember the Jensen boy? Same thing, and Lucy Harper before that." Sarah needed more details, but interrupting them might scare them off. Instead, she jotted down everything she overheard and resolved to dig deeper. Sarah spent the next 2 days poring over old police reports and news clippings. The names matched: Ethan Carter, Tommy Jensen, Lucy Harper. All had gone missing, their cases unsolved. The police had no leads, no connections, at least none they had made public. But Sarah noticed something chilling. Each victim's disappearance occurred within a week of renting or receiving a mysterious VHS tape. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah sought out Mark, her best friend and a fellow journalist. "You're seriously chasing a haunted tape?" Mark asked, incredulous. "Think about it," Sarah argued. "If there's even a shred of truth to this, it's the story of a lifetime, missing people, urban legend, potential danger. It's perfect." Mark sighed, but eventually relented. "Fine, but if we're doing this, we do it right. No half-baked theories." Their investigation led them to Mrs. Carter, Ethan's reclusive aunt, who had been seen visiting his house shortly after his disappearance. Sarah and Mark knocked on her door, their breath fogging in the freezing air. Mrs. Carter answered reluctantly, her gaunt face and wary eyes hinting at sleepless nights. "We're looking into Ethan's case," Sarah explained gently. "We've heard about a tape." The woman's face paled and she cut Sarah off. "You don't want anything to do with that tape." "Please," Sarah pressed. "We just want to understand." After a long silence, Mrs. Carter relented. She shuffled to a back room and returned with a black VHS tape, its surface scratched and unmarked. "Take it," she said, her voice trembling. "But if you watch it, you're on your own." Back at Sarah's apartment, the two friends prepared to watch the tape. Mark set up an old VCR, shaking his head. "This better be worth it," he muttered. As the tape began, the screen flickered with static. Eerie, disjointed images filled the screen. A swing set creaking in an empty playground, though there was no wind. A woman with long, matted black hair standing in front of a cracked mirror, her face obscured. A well, dark and foreboding, surrounded by overgrown weeds, the camera lingering on an eye that dilated unnaturally before blinking shut. The sequence ended abruptly with a distorted, childlike voice whispering, "7 days." The screen went black. "That's it?" Mark scoffed. But Sarah felt uneasy. The images clung to her mind, seeping into her thoughts like a virus. The first strange occurrence happened the next morning. Sarah woke to the sound of static. Her television was on, though she was certain she had turned it off. Mark called later that day, his voice tense. Weird stuff's happening. My laptop glitched, showing clips from the tape. And last night, I swear I heard footsteps in my apartment. Sarah tried to dismiss it as paranoia, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they had awakened something. By the third day, things escalated. Sarah caught glimpses of the woman from the tape, reflected in mirrors and windows, her form fleeting but unmistakable. Mark reported seeing her standing at the foot of his bed, watching him silently. "Sarah, this isn't just a creepy story," Mark said during a frantic phone call. "We need to do something before it's too late." Desperation led them to dig deeper into the town's history. Through old library records, they discovered the story of Lillian Ward, a reclusive woman who lived in Ashen Hollow decades ago. She was rumored to have strange abilities, able to see things others couldn't. When a series of tragic accidents befell the town, she was blamed and eventually vanished without a trace. Sarah pieced it together. Lillian must have been tied to the well in the tape. It's like she's reaching out through it. "Reaching out to kill us," Mark muttered grimly. They returned to Mrs. Carter, begging for more information. "You can't stop her," the old woman said, her voice hollow. "The tape is her curse. It binds you to her. The only escape is death." On the seventh day, Sarah and Mark ventured into the woods where the well from the tape was rumored to be. The air grew colder as they neared it, a suffocating chill that felt alive. The well stood exactly as it had in the tape, its stones mossy and cracked. Shadows danced around its edges, though no light penetrated its depths. "This is it," Sarah whispered, her breath visible in the frosty air. Mark approached cautiously, peering into the darkness. A faint whisper drifted up from the well, growing louder until it filled their ears with incoherent, maddening voices. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath them. Mark lost his footing and fell, his scream echoing as he disappeared into the abyss. Panicked, Sarah tied a rope to a nearby tree and climbed down after him. The walls were damp and slick, the air thick with the stench of decay. At the bottom, her flashlight illuminated a horrifying sight. Piles of bones, broken and scattered, covered the floor. "Mark?" she called, her voice trembling. A faint groan answered her. She turned to see Mark slumped against the wall, his face pale and bloodied. Before she could reach him, the air shifted. From the shadows emerged Lillian Ward, her twisted, bloated face illuminated by Sarah's trembling flashlight. Her hollow eyes locked onto Sarah, and she smiled, a grotesque, unnatural grin. "You watched," Lillian hissed. "Now you stay." Sarah screamed as Lillian lunged, her skeletal fingers clawing at her. The flashlight flickered and died, plunging the well into total darkness. Above ground, the snow continued to fall. Sarah and Mark's disappearance made headlines, but the town of Ashen Hollow carried on, its secrets buried deep. Months later, in a town miles away, a package appeared on a doorstep. Inside was an unmarked VHS tape waiting to claim its next victims. The cycle continued, the curse of the tape forever spreading. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe for more chilling stories. And remember, be careful. I'll be watching you.